Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the NFL DFS video for week number 9. First of all, I do want to apologize. Haven't been able to get as many of these NFL DFS videos out as I would like. But for today's quick video, I just want to go over my kind of player pool for both DraftKings and FanDuel. Kind of give you a quick little rundown on the players in play for me this week. Kind of my general thoughts on them, just a quick little synopsis, and then kind of go from there. If there's anything else you'd like to see in future NFL DFS videos, be sure to leave it down in the comments. But without further ado, we'll get started with the DraftKings side at the quarterback position. We are going to start off with Lamar Jackson. He's $8,200. Pretty favorable matchup this week against the Seattle Seahawks, although their defense has been getting healthier and been getting better as of late. So Lamar does have a really strong upside if you don't like him. Jalen Hurts would be the other high-end option at $8,000. Goes against a little bit tougher Dallas defense, but still a very beatable matchup at that. Plus, you have the rushing upside with him as well. Then on the opposite side of that game, we have Dak Prescott at $6,500. I like him on DraftKings, not quite as much on FanDuel, just with the players around his price point. But he has played pretty well against the Eagles in the past. The Eagles are allowing a lot of fantasy points to quarterbacks and opposing wide receivers, so just keep that in mind. Then we have Sam Howell going against New England. So this one's kind of a little bit hit or miss here. We got $5,800, decent price tag. Howell's shown some pretty good games so far this season. Rookie quarterbacks typically struggle against the New England defense. Sam Howell might as well be a rookie since it is the second season and he really didn't play much as a rookie himself. So we'll see what that looks like. Derek Carr's been doing really well as of late at $5,700. So a guy that I do like quite a bit against the Chicago Bears this week overall. You know, if you want to stack him with like a Chris Olave, you could probably do it. It's pretty popular this week though, although Olave really hasn't done too much as of late. But even if you just want to get to like a Derek Carr and Alvin Kamara stack, does make some sense there. Then we get down to Baker Mayfield. It's an okay matchup against Houston Texans, mainly just here for the price point of $5,200. Would be interested in stacking him with either Mike Evans or Trey Palmer is kind of a dart throw. That would be where I would go. Maybe even a K-Dot and stack there as well against those Houston Texans linebackers who've been kind of hit or miss versus tight ends so far this season. And then in our cheaper plays at quarterback, we got Gardner Minshew of the Colts playing against the Carolina Panthers pass defense that hasn't been the greatest this year. And then we got Taylor Heinicke at $5,000 making his first start of the season against the Minnesota Vikings, who obviously have a very, very hit or miss defense so far this season. At the running back position, Alvin Kamara is the top dog at $8,100. He's been great since he's been back. It's also a really good matchup against the Chicago Bears. Should be a pretty chalky play even at $8,100. Saquon Barkley, a pretty solid matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders at $7,900. You know, that offensive line's starting to get a little bit healthier, so hopefully that helps him and the run game overall. On the opposite side of that game, if you're interested in Josh Jacobs, at $6,900, it's a decent matchup versus the Giants. They just did trade Leonard Williams away as well, so could be some upside to be had there, especially if he gets the volume. We'll see what this team looks like with a new offensive coordinator. Then we have DeAndre Swift at $6,600 against Dallas. You know, probably a guy that's not going to draw a ton of ownership, does still have a really strong upside this week. Jonathan Taylor should be pretty chalky at $6,400. Been getting more and more volume every single week. Really good matchup this week against the Panthers as well. Then we get down to Aaron Jones. So I did add him here later on in the week for my player pool of $6,200. He is about the healthiest he's been so far this season. It's a pretty favorable matchup against the Rams. We'll see how that looks ultimately at the end of the day, but has some pretty strong upside there. Bijan Robinson is all the way down to $6,100. Definitely worth a couple dart throws in large field tournaments there. And then Gus Edwards coming off the really impressive 3-touchdown week, $5,900. Pretty good matchup against Seattle, although they did add Leonard Williams to that defensive line unit. Probably going to draw a lot of ownership at $5,900, so probably ultimately a little bit underweight to him on the field, but still think he's a very viable option once again this week. Rashad White, you know, he's not putting up monster numbers, but his price tag of $5,600 still looks good against the Texans defense that, you know, is kind of middle of the pack versus the run so far this season. Then we have Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford versus Arizona. Take your pick on which one of these guys you want to play. Kareem Hunt scored a touchdown, I believe, 3 straight weeks now, so he's probably my favorite, but Jerome Ford, if you want him, you can play him as well. Going against Arizona, both of them should look pretty interesting, especially in tournaments. Then there's Darrell Henderson, $5,100 against the Packers. Pretty favorable matchup once again. Should be getting most of the volume. I think Royce Freeman got a little bit more in garbage time last week, so I do expect Henderson to take the lion's share once again. Chuba Hubbard, very interesting matchup versus the Colts. Sounds like he's going to be the start over Miles Sanders, but if you want to take a shot on Sanders, you could look at him as well at $4,500. Whoever ultimately ends up going off out of this duo is going to be very important for this week. And then we got Devin Singletary, probably going to be really chalky at $4,300 with Dameon Pierce out, but still really like him overall and the upside that he could present for this week. Moving over to the wide receiver position, we got A.J. Brown at $8,600. If you're playing Jalen Hurts, probably a good idea to stack him with A.J. Brown. You could probably do Devonta Smith, but the matchup does look a little bit more favorable for A.J. Brown, and he's been extremely consistent as of late. Cooper Kupp, if Matthew Stafford plays at $8,500, I still like him. If it's Brett Rippon, probably just going to axe him all together. And then we got CeeDee Lamb on the opposite side of that Eagles and Cowboys matchup. Really like his matchup against slot corner for the Eagles, whoever it ultimately ends up being this week. We've seen guys like Bradley Roby, Josiah Scott kind of mixing in there, but we're not sure who it's going to be this week. I think Amonte Maddox is still out, so do like Lamb either way, though, and he put up a monster week last week. Devontae Adams, kind of the hype all week is that he's going to get a ton of targets this week with all the changes at head coach and offensive coordinator. So $8,100, pretty favorable matchup versus the Giants, but still tied to Aiden O'Connell, so we'll see how that ultimately ends up panning out. Maybe you get on the Jacoby Myers side and just kind of get a little bit of leverage there. So I do have him listed at $6,400. Michael Pittman at $66, I think is a very interesting combination with Gardner Minshew. Obviously, Josh Downs has had the big week so far, but it's a pretty favorable matchup for Pittman versus the Carolina Panthers as well. If you want to go down at Josh Downs at $5,200, who's been a little bit banged up in recent days, you can do that as well. Then we got Tyler Lockett, $6,200. Out of the wide receivers for Seattle, I like him. I like Jackson Smith and Jigba in this matchup. I think Marlon Humphrey is going to get more of DK Metcalf. I like the other two matchups a little bit better. Moving down to Jordan Addison, he's $6,000, which isn't a ridiculous price tag whatsoever, tied to a rookie quarterback in Jaren Hall. So a lot more risk this week. Probably still going to draw a decent amount of ownership, though, since he's played so well, but still worth considering, especially if you are going out there and you just kind of need a $6,000 filler, if nothing else. I think Amari Cooper is very interesting if Deshaun Watson plays this week at $6,100. Even if he doesn't, he still might be decent in this matchup versus the Cardinals as well. Then we got Zay Flowers going against Seattle. Should be a favorable matchup for him. $5,700. Do like the upside. Maybe a little bit more ownership than I would like coming in this week, though. And then we got Christian Watson, $4,900, a guy that I do like quite a bit for DFS purposes this week going against the Rams. Should be a favorable matchup. If Jordan Love can bomb it out to him a couple times, could ultimately pay off at a $4,900 price tag. And then I like KJ Osborne at $4,600 quite a bit. Kind of a guy that is working that short and intermediate routes a little bit more probably for this team. Maybe he gets a couple deep throws there too from Jaren Hall. I think he's just an interesting play, especially if you want to get off of Jordan Addison with that rookie quarterback this week. Then we have Jackson Smith the Jigga. I already talked about him quite a bit, but kind of the spot you want to target the Ravens DBs is at that nickel corner with Arthur Mallett. So should be a pretty good week for him overall. Demario Douglas is a guy that a lot of people are going to be hyping up this week for the New England Patriots. Somebody's got to catch balls in this offense. Who it's going to be is remaining to be seen, whether it's him, whether it's Juju Smith-Schuster, whether it's Jalen Reagor, Tyquan Thornton. Just take a shot on any of these guys, but they're all just kind of tournament plays. Nobody that I'm really, truly going out of my way for. And then the next three wide receivers are for the Atlanta Falcons: Van Jefferson, Matt Collins, Kadarius Hodge. They're $3,400 to $3,600. Take a shot on anyone if you want to with no Drake London this week. No guarantee that any of them will pay off, but they're just kind of dart throws for bigger field tournaments. And then we have Jonathan Mingo. He played a lot more as of late. Looks like Chark's kind of banged up. $3,400 could make a little bit of sense there. And then $3,200 Rondo Moore is a little bit interesting with a new quarterback in Clayton Tune, maybe a little bit more short underneath routes to him, maybe to Trey McBride as well. Going against that Cleveland defense, they've been pretty tough against outside wide receivers. They've been pretty tough on tight ends, but slot is kind of where it's been at, and Greg Newsom's out this week, so it could be a favorable matchup there just in general. Talked about Trey Palmer a little bit with that Baker Mayfield stack, but $3,200 dart throw, if he gets a long touchdown, could really pay off there. Noah Brown was pretty good once again last week. No Robert Woods, $3,100. Looks pretty good for a pay down option. And then Juju Smith-Schuster at $3,100. Like I said, with those New England Patriots wide receivers, take a chance on any of them. He could really pay off at $3,100. And then, like I said, those other two guys there, Tyquan Thornton, Jalen Reagor, both $3,000 in New England. We got Cedric Tillman, who should be active this week at $3,000, taking the place of Donovan Peoples-Jones. Could have a little bit of upside there, and I believe David Bell's out as well. And then Isaiah Hodgins, we saw an uptick in snaps for him last week, is flat minimum at $3,000. And Zach Pascal, if Michael Wilson's out at $3,000 minimum price tag, could ultimately end up paying off just a little bit as well. Moving over to the tight end position, we got Mark Andrews at $6,800. it's Mark Andrews. We don't have to say too much here. If you're playing Lamar Jackson, you're probably playing him alongside him, unless you're really going like the Zay Flowers route. You could go Rashad Bateman this week just because he's cheap, but I don't trust it. Then we got TJ Hawkinson with the rookie quarterbacks. Sometimes those rookie quarterbacks like to target those tight ends just a little bit more, but there's a lot of options to choose from in this offense. It's still a pretty favorable matchup going against the Falcons, whose linebackers have not been that great so far this season. On the opposite side of that game, we got Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith at $4,100, $3,400 respectively. No Drake London. We'll see who the ball goes to out of Taylor Heineke's hand. The Vikings have surprisingly been decent versus tight ends this year, but have they really faced two athletic tight ends like this in the past? Then we get down to Jake Ferguson. He's $4,000 going against the Eagles. Looks like a pretty favorable matchup. Trey McBride coming off the really strong week at $3,700. Rookie quarterback there in Clayton Tune. So could be pretty interesting for him overall, although the Browns have been pretty tough on tight ends so far this season. Then we get down to the cheaper guys, and Luke Musgrave for the Green Bay Packers, who's been a decent target for them throughout the season. Not anybody that I'm going out of my way for this week, but against the Rams with Ernest Jones could be a pretty interesting play. And then we got Michael Mayer, who's been really involved for the Raiders as of late, $2,800. Does make a lot of sense there. And then Daniel Bellinger at the flat minimum. No Darren Waller. And pretty much all of the Raiders linebackers are banged up at this point in time. They did sign Jalen Smith to the team from the practice squad of the Saints. So they're kind of desperate at this point in time. So Bellinger does make some sense if you're looking for a cheap tight end. And then in terms of our defenses, we got the Browns going against a rookie quarterback in Clayton Tune at $4,200. Looks pretty good there. Pretty strong defense overall, even though if they are missing Greg Newsome this week. Then for the Falcons, going against another rookie quarterback in Jaron Hall, $3,700, coming off a bad week versus another rookie quarterback in Will Levis. But if they can kind of rally around this defense and put some pressure on Jaron Hall, could be a decent week for them overall. I like the Commanders going against Mac Jones and company. There's just not any weapons on this offense at this point in time for $3,200. Don't really care if they don't have Chase Young or Montez Sweat. Still think they could do enough on defense to be worth it at this point in time. Packers, if it's Brett Rippon at quarterback, they're going to be pretty interesting at $2,800. On the opposite side of the game, Rams look pretty good. I think they can get some pressure on Jordan Love and kind of put him into unfavorable situations where he might be a little bit more turnover prone, $2,600. Definitely like that price tag. And then for the Giants, going against a rookie quarterback in Aiden O'Connell, $2,300 is a very, very cheap pay down option if you want to go that direction. But with that being said, that's kind of my quick little thoughts for my player pool for the DraftKings side for this week. We'll get moved over to FanDuel and talk a bit over there as well. So at the quarterback position, once again, we got Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson at the top, $9,000. $8,600 respectively. I were more on the Lamar Jackson train myself this week. Both have rushing upside. Both have stackable options to go alongside them. Then we get Sam Howell at $7,400. Like I said, on the DraftKings side, going against New England, young quarterbacks typically have a harder time versus Bill Belichick defense, but I still like the upside of Sam Howell at $7,400. Taylor Heinicke, $7,200, which means he's a little bit more expensive than some of these other guys this week. So like the matchup against Minnesota. Maybe we play one of the three below him, though, overall. Derek Carr, $7,100. I really, really like this week. Going against the Chicago Bears, he's played really well as of late, so definitely do like him. CJ Stroud's only $7,000, coming off a little bit of a down week. You could play him against Tampa Bay if you really want to. And then Gardner Minshew at $6,500, just a very, very cheap value out there. Going against a very favorable matchup against the Carolina Panthers this week. Then at running back, we still have Alvin Kamara, once again, $9,200. Really favorable matchup for him versus the Chicago Bears once again. So I really do like what he's done so far since he came back from suspension. We got Saquon Barkley right behind him at $8,600. Still a pretty favorable matchup against those Las Vegas Raiders. That offensive line is getting healthier once again, so it looks like a pretty good value, especially if you want to get off of the Alvin Kamara train. Jonathan Taylor's up to $8,000 now. Still probably going to ultimately be a little bit more than that, but favorable matchup this week versus Carolina, so I'll take it. Josh Jacobs, like I said, kind of maybe a contrarian play this week, but a really good matchup against the Giants, who are without Leonard Williams on that defensive line now, as well as some of those pass rushers. So we'll see what it looks like, but I think it could be a good week for him. DeAndre Swift versus the Cowboys, you can take some shots there as well. I think Gus Edwards is going to be popular after the 3-touchdown game at $7,100, so probably less on him this week overall. I think there's more options to get away from him on the FanDuel side as well. If you want to get to Bijan Robinson to $7,100, does make some sense against the Vikings, who, can get ran on at times, and they're without Dean Lowry, one of their main defensive linemen this week. Rashad White, $6,900. Makes a little bit of sense versus the Texans. More of a bigger tournament play than anything. Tony Pollard's only $6,600 on FanDuel this week. So I think that's a really favorable price tag for him. It's a tough matchup against the Eagles, but if he scores a touchdown or two, could really pay off for our tournament teams. Maybe even a cash game play this week if you really want to go that direction. Chuba Hubbard's $6,500. So he's a little bit more pricey on the FanDuel side, respectively. But could be very much be in play versus this Colts defense that has not done too much as of late, especially without Grover Stewart as kind of their, true nose tack 0-1 technique in terms of stopping the run. If you want to go to Miles Sanders in that same respect, $5,600, could do that as well. Aaron Jones, only $6,400. Sounds like he's as healthy as he's been in quite some time, so I do like him. Like Darrell Anderson on the opposite side of the game going against the Green Bay defense that can get run on at times. Quay Walker may or may not play in this game. He's dealing with a calf injury as well. And then last but not least, we have Devin Singletary, $5,300. Could be a pretty chalky option with no Dameon Pierce this week. It's a tougher matchup against Tampa, but if he gets the bulk load of the carries, should look pretty good overall. Wide receivers going to be pretty similar at the top. Once again, we got A.J. Brown, 9,000. If you're playing Jalen Hurts, you're probably going to play him alongside. You can stack those two for 18,000. It won't really kill you in the end. You can still find some other good values to go with them. We got CeeDee Lamb, $8,800. Like I said on DraftKings, really like the matchup versus the Eagles slot corner, whoever it happens to be this week. Cooper Kupp, mainly just if Matthew Stafford plays. If he doesn't play and it's Brett Rippon, might not be so good, but could be a contrarian play at that point in time. Devontae Adams, it seems like everybody and their mother is talking about him at this point in time versus the Giants. New offensive coordinator, new head coach. Probably going to get a lot of targets, but Aiden O'Connell still gives us some pause. Then Mike Evans, I like the matchup versus the Texans at $7,400, like the upside that he could have. Michael Pittman behind him. If Josh Downs is out, probably going to get a couple extra targets this week, $7,300 versus a favorable Carolina Panthers matchup. Jordan Addison, $7,100. Still probably going to get some decent ownership. A little bit more worried with Jaron Hall at quarterback this week. So if you want to get off him to somebody else, it makes a little bit of sense. Devonta Smith, I like him a lot more on FanDuel where he's only $7,000 as opposed to DraftKings where he's a little bit more pricey respectively. Then behind him, we have Tyler Lockett, $6,900. Like I said, Lockett and Jackson Smith-Njigba I like in this matchup. Not so much DK Metcalf. Then we get down to Josh Downs, who's $6,400, dealing with a little bit of a knee injury at this point in time. If he's good to go for the game, still have a good amount of interest in him this week overall. I think his ownership could be down at that point in time. Zay Flowers, $6,100, pretty respectable price tag, but do like the upside he could present once again this week. Christian Watson, $6,000, probably a little bit more pricey, just ever so slightly than the DraftKings side. But, if you can get a big play here or there at low ownership is going to help out your teams for GPPs, for tournament plays. And then we got Jahan Dotson. I like him on FanDuel. Didn't like him quite as much on DraftKings, $5,900. No Curtis Samuel this week. Could get a couple extra targets. Then we get down to those New England Patriots wide receivers, whether it's Demario Douglas, $5,400, Juju Smith-Schuster, $5,200, Tyquan Thornton, $4,500, and Jalen Reagor at $4,200. One of them is going to pay off. Take a couple shots if you want to this week overall. Isaiah Hodgins, only $4,900. Going to get some targets. Played a lot more last week. Trey Palmer, $4,900. If you get lucky on a deep target with him from Baker Mayfield, could end up panning out for us this week overall. And then we got some other cheap guys in that slot position in Noah Brown and Hunter Renfrow, both at $4,800 respectively on the FanDuel side this week. If they get enough volume to pay off at $4,800, would not be completely out of the question. Over at the tight end position, pretty similar to what we saw in DraftKings. So we got Mark Andrews at the top at $7,500. It's going to look like a decent matchup versus the Seahawks once again. If you're playing Lamar Jackson, makes a lot of sense to stack Lamar Andrews. TJ Hawkinson, I think the ownership may or may not be down just a little bit this week. Don't mind him whatsoever against those Atlanta Falcons linebackers, though. $6,700. Still paying up a little bit at this point in time, though. Trey McBride, like I said before, tough matchup versus the Cleveland Browns, but rookie quarterback could hyper target the tight end as well. It happens sometimes it doesn't. And then we have Kyle Pitts, $5,200. If you want to play him or Jonnu Smith versus the Vikings, you could do it, especially without Drake London out there this week. Jake Ferguson, still like him quite a bit versus the Eagles linebackers, who have not been great against the tight end so far this season. Michael Mayer, been doing his thing last few weeks at $4,900. Makes some sense as a pay down. Luke Musgrave, there's been weeks where he's been very involved for this Packers team. There's no Ernest Jones at linebacker for the Rams this week, so could be a favorable matchup for him. And then we do have Daniel Bellinger, $4,300, almost a flat minimum at the tight end position, going against the Raiders, who have a very, very depleted linebacker core this week overall. Then for our defenses, we got the Falcons, going against a rookie quarterback in Jaren Hall at $5,000 makes some sense there. Browns, $4,700 going against that rookie quarterback in Clayton Tune makes a lot of sense as well. Commanders, they don't have the edge rushers anymore. They still got James Smith-Williams, who's a decent replacement on the one side. If they can get some pressure on Mac Jones. The Patriots don't have a lot of options around him to really help him out, so could be a favorable matchup still. Packers at $3,900 versus the Rams. If it's Brett Rippon, I like it. And then we got the Patriots, $3,700 versus Sam Howell. They've been pretty tough on young quarterbacks. Bill Belichick traditionally over the years, so if they can do that once again, get him to create some turnovers, $3,700 could make some sense. And then last but not least, we have the Rams at $3,300 against the Packers. The Rams defense, very hit or miss this year, but if they can get some pressure on Jordan Love, could be a pretty good game for them overall this week. But with that being said, that's kind of my quick little rundown for NFL DFS for week number 9. Once again, if you guys have any questions regarding NFL DFS whatsoever, be sure to drop them down in the comments and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Any other ideas you want for the NFL DFS video series in the coming weeks, be sure to let me know as well. But this is kind of the way that I'm structuring it for now. It's just kind of the simplest way for me, kind of breaking things down on both sides rather quickly, a little bit of quick hitting thoughts on each player. If there's anyone you'd like to hear a little bit more about for this week or in coming weeks, be sure to let me know as well. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel or have yet to subscribe, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now we have NBA DFS Monday through Friday. We got NFL DFS video coming up once a week. Also, we'll have the NFL DFS cheat sheets out on the sports affiliation website. I will link them in the community tab on YouTube as well. So definitely be sure to check those out. A lot of that's going to be from this player pool as well. But if you want it a little bit more simplified, be sure to check those out. And then with that being said, if you are interested in the sports betting, if you're interested in the prop betting, be sure to check out the links down in the description below for Prize Picks, Parlay Play, and BetUS. If you join over there, your first-time depositor, you will get a first match deposit bonus depending on how much you put in. It helps you out as you are starting your sports betting, your prop betting journey. Helps me out a little bit on the side. If you guys have any questions about that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comments or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and be more than happy to help you over there as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have at this point in time. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning into this video. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in NFL DFS for week number 9.